How did a dispute over borders, history, and security spiral into Europe's deadliest war in decades? In this video, we'll unpack the modern history of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the stories each side tells, and what the facts actually show. To understand today's war, we need to step back from the headlines and look at how it began. Russia and Ukraine share deep historical ties from medieval Kievan Rus to centuries under empires. In the 20th century, both became part of the Soviet Union, where borders and identities were tightly controlled. When the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991, Ukraine declared independence and kept Soviet-era borders, including Crimea. Russia formally recognized Ukraine's borders, and in 1994, Ukraine gave up its nuclear arsenal for security assurances. Over the 2000s, Ukraine oscillated between pro-European and pro-Russian leaders, reflecting a divided political landscape. Many Ukrainians pushed to integrate with the EU and NATO, while Russia warned this threatened its security. In late 2013, Ukraine's president suspended an EU agreement, sparking mass pro-European protests in Kyiv. Clashes with security forces turned deadly. Protesters called it a revolution, while Moscow saw a Western-backed coup. After Yanukovych fled, a new pro-Western government took power in Kyiv, recognized by most countries. Russia swiftly moved to seize Crimea, claiming it was protecting Russian speakers and its Black Sea Fleet. Unmarked troops took control, and after a rushed referendum, Russia annexed Crimea, condemned as illegal by Ukraine and the UN. At the same time, armed uprisings erupted in eastern Ukraine's Donbas region, fueled by local rebels and Russian support. Years of fighting followed, killing thousands and displacing over 1 million, even after the Minsk peace deals. The front lines stabilized into a low-intensity war, while diplomacy stalled and mistrust deepened on all sides. Russian leaders framed NATO's expansion and Ukraine's westward tilt as crossing their red lines. Ukraine and its Western partners countered that every state has the sovereign right to choose its alliances. In 2021, Russia massed troops near Ukraine's borders, alarming Western governments who warned of a possible invasion. On February 24, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion from multiple directions, shocking the world. Russian officials called it a special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine, language Kyiv, and many experts rejected. Ukraine's military and civilians mounted fierce resistance, preventing a quick Russian victory and defending key cities. Millions of Ukrainians fled their homes, creating one of the fastest-growing refugee crises in recent history. Western countries imposed sweeping sanctions on Russia and began sending large-scale military and economic aid to Ukraine. Russia framed sanctions as economic warfare by the West and tightened control over media and political dissent at home. Cities like Mariupol and others suffered devastating sieges with widespread destruction and allegations of war crimes. In late 2022, Ukrainian counteroffensives recaptured territory near Kharkiv and Kherson, boosting morale. But the war settled into attritional trench warfare, with front lines shifting slowly at high human cost. Supporters of Ukraine argue that continued aid is essential to stop aggression and defend international law. Critics worry that arming Ukraine risks escalation, prolongs the war, and diverts resources from domestic needs. In much of the global south, many blame both Western policies and Russia, calling instead for negotiations. Multiple rounds of talks, from Minsk to Istanbul, have failed to produce a lasting political settlement. International courts have opened investigations into alleged war crimes, further complicating any future peace talks. Meanwhile, European security is being reshaped, with countries like Finland and Sweden joining NATO in response. For Ukrainians, the war is seen as a fight for survival and independence against a larger neighbor. In Russia, some back the government's narrative, while others quietly fear the human and economic toll. This conflict didn't happen overnight, and it won't end overnight either. But understanding how we got here, beyond the headlines and talking points, is how we move from reaction to informed conversation. If this breakdown helped clarify the complexity of the Russia-Ukraine war, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our deep dives into the conflicts shaping our world. Drop a comment below. What aspect of this war do you think is most misunderstood? What questions do you still have? Your perspective matters, and if you want to go deeper, check out the sources and timeline in the description below. Knowledge is power, especially when the stakes are this high. Thanks for watching, and remember, peace doesn't come from ignoring hard truths, it comes from facing them together. See you in the next one.